Today's topic is from loneliness to aloneness. Before entering into the subject, we will understand the mechanisms or the structures of aloneness and loneliness. What is aloneness and what is loneliness? Then we will be able to enter into the subject. Aloneness is the nature of man. Aloneness is the very nature of the being. From the birth, no, even before the birth, aloneness is the nature. Aloneness is the reality of man. Before the birth, in the mother's womb, is alone. Alone, peaceful, blissful, relaxed, no responsibility, no commitment, no routine, nothing to be followed. Totally blissful, totally relaxed, utter peaceful state. The life in the mother's womb was totally alone. Psychologists say even the quest for the nirvana, kaivalya, enlightenment is nothing but the deep imprint. It is nothing but the anchoring of the imprint of the womb life. It is nothing but the anchoring of the sanskar, imprint, which is inside about the mother's womb's life, the life which you lived in the mother's womb. Of course, there is a truth. There is a truth in their words. The search, the seeking for the rest or for the bliss or for heaven or for whatever you may call the place where the things will be as it should be, all the search you can see almost depicts the state in which you were in the mother's womb. Once you are born, you enter into the society. Even when you enter into the society, never think your being is societal. Your being is aloneness. You are born, you grow, you get married, you fulfill your sexual desire, you get few children, then you die. Throughout the incidents, throughout all the incident, you are alone. Surely, if you mistake yourself that somebody else is there with you, you have done a very big mistake. From the time of the birth till the time when you leave this body, you are simply alone. You are simply alone. The aloneness is the nature of your being. Aloneness is the nature of your very existence. But we never understand. There's a beautiful sloka in the Gita which says, Sutre Manigana Iva. I am the thread among the beads. When he says, I am the thread among the beads, he speaks about this aloneness only. The aloneness is the thread among the beads which can be called as incidents in your life. Your birth, your education, your getting married, you are having kids, or having wealth, death, all the incidents. You take all these incidences as a beads, all these things as a beads. Your aloneness is the sutra or thread. It connects everything. Almost all the religions, all the groups, they have the idea in long, long ago, once upon a time, there was an age where truth prevailed, where everything was heavenly, where the joy existed. In all the religions, in all the sects, this idea is there. In Hinduism, they call it Satya Yuga. There was a time long, long ago, it was Satya Yuga. Everything was great. Everything was joyful. Everything was peaceful. Everything was blissful. In Christianity, they call it as a Garden of Adam and Eve. In Taoism, they say there was a time when no preachers, no priests were there because the religion prevailed, the Taoism prevailed. The Taoism was prevailed everywhere. In Buddhism, they say there was a period where Dhamma was the lifestyle. In every religion, every sect, they say there was a time the truth was alone there. Things were as it should be. But there was never such time existed. It is just an individual imprint of their womb life, of their life in the mother's womb. It is just the hankering or the impression, hankering over the impression, hankering to have the same life back. It is just that impression created by the life which you lived in a mother's womb. That impression goes on showing you that past was golden. Almost all the people, all the religion, all the groups, they believe there was a time the golden past existed. There was a time when everything was as it should be. Everything was great. But if you look back the past, you will understand actually there was no such time. It is only your memory, your imprint, your thinking. We always think there was a time where everything was beautiful. Now only in the present age, everything is degraded. You know, there was a stone inscription found in Mesopotamia 6,000 years ago. If you read that stone inscription, you find as if it is a today newspaper's editorial. It says, now this is the age of sin. All the husbands and wife relationship, it is getting broken, and no son, no daughter listens to the parents. The morality is getting degraded. People have started stealing. 6,000 years ago, the inscription in Mesopotamia, stone inscription says, this is the age degradation is entered. 6,000 years ago also, the situation was same. Only we think there was a golden past. If you go back to the history, I can say the Vedic sutras, the Veda mantras, which is written at least 5,000 years ago, they say, in this age, the Kali has entered. It is not like a past. Now, the son is trying to have a relationship with mother, and daughter is trying to seduce the father. This is the age Kali has entered. In olden time, there was high morality and discipline prevailed all over the earth. This is a statement not made today, yesterday, 5,000 years ago. So the standard of life or the standard of sin and the good was same even in the past. Our memory, our imprint about the mother's womb's life, the individual impression, individual imprint of the mother's womb's life, mother's womb life, the individual impression, individual sanskar of that life shows as if the past was great. There was a time when golden past existed. There was a time when everything was as it should be. But there was never such a time existed. throughout the history of humanity, the good and evil was equal. That is the way world was running. Our memory of that aloneness, of that joy, of that bliss, of that peace gives the idea you had the golden past. You had things were as it should be. The aloneness is the nature of your very being. When you are born, even before your birth, and when you are born, when your life, and after you are leaving the body, throughout your journey, the aloneness was your nature. Aloneness was your being. Even after death, the aloneness is your state. Aloneness is your very nature. Let us see the circuit of loneliness. What is exactly loneliness? Many people come and tell me, Swamiji, loneliness creates such a heavy pain. Loneliness creates excruciating pain in our being. The loneliness is such a heaviness on our system. How can we face it? The very word loneliness makes something painful. It makes a deep depression in our being. How to go beyond it? How to handle it? People say, Swamiji, I have everything. Big house, the business, the kids, the wife, the car, whatever the outer world can offer. But I feel lonely sometimes. I feel totally alone. How can I go beyond this loneliness? How can I go beyond the pain of this loneliness? If you just understand the circuit or the mechanism of your mind, then you will understand exactly what is loneliness. See, your mind cannot be alive if you are lonely. Your mind can be alive, your thinking system can be alive only with relationships. It cannot be alive when you are lonely, when you are alone. It can never be alive. Your ego cannot be alive, your personality cannot be alive if you are alone. All your mind, ego, personality, they work only with the relationships. Only when you relate, these things work. These things can be alive. When you don't relate, these things cannot be alive because your personality is gifted to you by society. Your personality is societal. Your individuality is natural. If you know about yourself only by others' opinion about you, it is personality. If you know about yourself by your own understanding, by your own clarity, it is individuality. Your personality feels sick if you are alone. Society always says you are such a good person. When so many persons are there, when so many people are around you, you feel you are a good person. You are a good husband. You are a good wife. You are a good son. You are a good daughter. You are a good businessman. You are a good... So many ways you are a good person. So your personality feels strengthened. Your mind feels strong. Your ego feels satisfied. Your being is fed with some material. You feel that you are feeling the fulfillment. But when you are alone, you don't have any food. Your mind doesn't have any material to cherish. Your personality doesn't have any bottom, any ground to have its root. Your very roots are shaken when you are alone. But the problem is, you make a very big mistake of mistaking yourself as a personality. Actually, you are not a personality, you are individuality. When you make a mistake of associating yourself with a personality, you feel the pain or the sickness of loneliness. When you think you are only a good doctor, good husband, good wife, good son, you have to feel the pain, you will feel the pain of loneliness. You are not a good doctor, you are not a good husband, you are not a good wife. It is your profession, that's all. Good doctor is just your profession. Good husband is only one of your relationship. It is not your personality, it is not your individuality. It is just your personality. Understand the difference between personality and individuality. Personality is the titles given to you by society. It is societal. Individuality is the understanding about yourself by yourself. It is natural. Individuality is natural. Personality is societal. With relationships, when you are together with so many people, when you are together with your family, when you are together with your friends, when you are together with your relatives, your personality gets strengthened. Your personality pays you. All the comforts, all your life is given to you by your personality. What others think about you only pays you. So you continuously try to boast your personality. You continuously try to feed your personality, but you forget a major dimension of your being, which is called individuality. Whenever you forget the individuality and feed the personality, at some one time or the other, when the personality becomes too big, but the individuality is never attended, all the energy is sucked by the personality and individuality is not at all attended. At those times, your individuality cries from inside, please look at me. Please turn your face a little bit towards me. That crying is what is the pain of loneliness. The invitation from your individuality to turn yourself towards itself is what is called the pain of loneliness. You never bother about yourself, who you are. You only bother what others say about you. Two things: living for the quality and living for the name. Living for the character and living for others' opinion. Most of the time we spend for others' opinion, not for the quality. If we work 40% for quality, 60% is for advertisement. 40% for the product and 60% for hoarding. That is the ratio our being works. In the relationship, your personality gets strengthened. You feel strong. When 10 people praise you, you feel confident. You feel you are elated. But when you are alone, when you are lonely, no relationships, there is nobody to tell you you are good. One more thing, it is not that only by good opinions your personality gets strengthened, even by the bad opinions. When people say you are a bad person, even then your personality gets strengthened, because you get the attention. Attention is the food for personality. Any attention is the food for personality. We do everything just to draw the attention of the others. Even the polite people behaving very polite way, very goody way, even that is nothing but trying to get the attraction in the topsy-turvy way. The aggressive ego and the passive ego. When you are aggressive, you try to force yourself upon others. You try to get the attraction by force. When you behave in a very goody way, you try to beg attention from others, either demanding or begging. Demanding with aggressiveness, begging with passiveness. Of course, both are asking for the attention, either by good opinion or by the bad opinion. Your personality gets strengthened. When you are alone, there is nobody to praise you. There is nothing to do. You are just yourself. What will you do? You feel sick because the roots of your ego is shaken. The roots of your personality is shaken. Your mind has no food. It has to slow down. It has to relax. When you don't understand, you are not your personality. You suffer the pain of loneliness. When you don't understand your individuality, being a good doctor or being a good husband, being a good wife is not all. It is only one portion of you. It is not all about you. You are something more than a doctor. You are something more than a patient. You are something more than a son. You are something more than a father. You are something more than a husband. You are something more than all these titles. It's like you send a parcel from here to India, to a small village called Thiruvannamalai. First, here in Los Angeles, they will put a stamp. Then when it reaches India, in Chennai, they will put next stamp. And the district headquarters, they will put the third stamp. Fourth stamp will be given in Thiruvannamalai, and it will be delivered. When so many stamps were put on that parcel, the parcel started thinking, I am nothing but the stamps. That's the same mistake you do. When so many stamps are put on you, good husband, good wife, good son, good father, good businessman, when so many rubber stamps are put on you, when so many things are stuck on you, you start thinking, I am nothing but the rubber stamps. But you are not the rubber stamps. You are something inside the parcel. You are something which is inside the parcel. You are the stuff which carries all the rubber stamp. As long as you associate yourself with rubber stamps, as long as you think you are rubber stamps, you are personality. When you understand you are a stuff which carries the rubber stamps, you reach the individuality. Till you understand the individuality, you have to undergo the pain of loneliness. Because your being or your mind will not be given enough of information or enough of material to work when you are alone. When you are together, things are perfectly all right. When you are alone, no other way. You have no material. What will your mind do? It has to die down or slow down. No other way. Which your mind never wants to do. It wants always to be occupied. When you find that your mind is not occupied, when your mind has to slowly die down or slow down, you do not want that to happen. That's why you just jump into the car and fly to Disneyland. Or at least you go away to some party. Everywhere continuously party is happening. Why? People want to escape from individuality. You know, even people have got nothing to do, you will see if they have got nothing to do, no party, no program, they will just sit in front of the TV. If there is no program, they will take up the newspaper, read same newspaper again and again. You can see the elderly people sitting and reading the same newspaper from first line to last line, from morning till evening. Even the editor will not read so thoroughly. They will finish totally. They would have got married, their sons would have got married, their grandchildren would have got married, but they will be reading the matrimonial columns. You can see so many retired people, they will be sitting and reading the matrimonial columns, especially in India. They would have married, their sons would have married, their even grandchildren would have got married. But they will be sitting and reading the matrimonial columns. Because nothing else to be done. How to escape from the individuality? throughout the life, they never turned towards the individuality. They were always thinking their personality. So, when the things which boast your personality, when those things are taken away, what will you do? You have to hide yourself. You have to some way escape from yourself. The way to escape from yourself, the way to move beyond yourself, the way to run away from yourself, you call it entertainments. But how long you can entertain yourself? At some one point, at some one moment, you feel total emptiness. Especially at the age of 40 to 50, when you have achieved everything, whatever society can give, till the 40 you will have the hope. You see, when you are in the college, always you will have the hope. Once I get my job, life will become joyful. When you get the job, once I get married, life will be joyful. When you get married, once I have my house, things will be settled. When you get your house, once I get my car, I will be happy. When you get your car, once I get my kids, things will be happy. By the time you reach 40, you will get everything except happiness. You will get whatever you wanted, but you will not get what for you wanted. So that is the time you reach a thing called depression of success. The depression of success. Everything is achieved. As long as you achieve things, I tell you, you will have at least the hope. When you have achieved, then comes the great problem, depression of success, the emptiness. That is what leads to obesity. The emptiness you take to three roots. When the emptiness touches you, that only three roots are available to you. One is addiction. The other one is suicide. The third one is meditation. Addiction means, I don't mean only the drugs and the alcohol. I mean even the food. Obesity is nothing but addiction. When you feel totally empty inside, male, pour and fill it. Female, dump and fill it. That's all. Male, pour the drinks and they fill. Female, just they dump the food and fill it. Obesity and drinks, both are one and the same. Addiction to food and addiction to drinks, both are nothing but the depression of success or the loneliness. When you can't face it, you go for the addiction. Some people go for the suicide, especially the countries which have seen all the outer world. The suicide rate is getting more and more because of this only one problem. They are not able to face the loneliness, the depression of success. Third thing, very few intelligent people take this path, meditation. When I say meditation, I don't mean only closing your eyes and sitting. I mean even the intelligent way of living. The intelligence is also a meditation. That's why in Sanatana Dharma, they call it they use three words to mean meditation. The meditation is explained in three words: Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan. Listening the great truths, contemplating on the great truths, and expressing those truths in the life. Even these three things are meditation. Meditation does not mean only closing your eyes for a few minutes and sitting. These three things are the parts of meditation, are the mechanisms of the meditation. To understand that you are not simply your personality, you have some individuality. You are not only somebody whom society has shown you. You are not somebody who society has introduced you. Most of you don't know about yourself. Society has introduced you to yourself. If somebody asks you who you are, what answer you will give? All your answers will be just given by the society, not by you. Just when you are back to your house, sit in your room alone and ask yourself who you are. Just for yourself. Don't give the answers which society has given to you. Ask yourself who you are. Actually who you are. To yourself. Mind will tell, don't ask all these foolish things. You went and listened that Swami from India and asking all these foolish things. Stop asking. Let us go for some other job. Let us go and sit, at least watch TV. Let us go and at least watch it. Read some books. Your mind will never allow you to sit. Because when you ask who you are, you have to understand the great truth. You are somebody above your personality. So you will go beyond the clutches of your mind. You will go beyond the levels of your ego. Mind will never allow that to happen. But don't let your mind run your life. When it runs, it ruins. Just add I with running, you will see the ruining will happen. Add I, it will never run, it will be ruin. So, whenever you base your life on ego, it will never run, it will only get ruined. Understand, you are something more than a personality. Then you will see your life just turns as a heaven. People ask me, Swamiji, if I am independent, if I am free, if I start being joyful, blissful in the aloneness, then what will happen to my family? What will happen to my relationships? What will happen to my relatives, friends? Will I leave everything and become like you? I tell you, when you understand that you are individuality, when you understand you are alone, only then you can really love others. Love can flower in you only when you understand you are alone. Love can never happen to you. The experience of love can never happen to you as long as you understand you are alone. Till you understand, till you are independent of the other, whatever you show in the name of love is nothing but slavery, psychological slavery. Unless you understand you are alone, whatever you show is just nothing but I smile at you, please you smile at me, that's all. Nothing else. It is nothing but a mere contract. It's nothing but a contract. Between the personalities, only contracts can happen. Only between individualities, contact can happen. Please be very clear. Between personalities, only contracts can happen. Between individualities, only contact can happen. When you understand you are totally independent, you are totally alone, a new smell, a new flavor happens to you. Out of that freedom, out of that joy, out of that ecstasy, some smell oozes out of you, some smell comes out of you. That smell only is called love. Whatever comes out of that ecstasy only can be love. Whatever comes out of that independence only can be called as love. Then you are centered on you. You give something from your being. Only that can be the love. Otherwise everything else is a simple contract. Simple contract. Only when you reach your core, from personality to individuality, from loneliness to aloneness, a real love can flower into your being. Anything real, anything solid can happen to you only when you reach the aloneness. The three ways, as I told you, the three parts of the meditation: listening, contemplating and expressing, is the way to reach from loneliness to aloneness. First thing, understand, be very clear, aloneness is your nature. All your search for joy, bliss, heaven, moksha, kaivalya, the very word kaivalya means aloneness in Sanskrit. The very word Kaivalya means aloneness. All your search for peace, bliss, moksha, Kaivalya, heaven is nothing but the search for aloneness. Search for aloneness. Understand this. Next thing, contemplate. Whenever you find time, just close your room, sit alone and contemplate really who you are. Really who you are. Forget all the relationships. Don't relate even mentally. Don't relate even mentally. Ask yourself, actually who am I? When all these rubber stamps are taken out from me, if all these names given by the society, if they are taken away from me, if the personality given by the societal, if it is taken away from me, who I am, who am I? Ask yourself. It is contemplation, the second path. Second thing. Third thing, even if it is painful, don't bother. Totally express in your life that you are actually alone. Undergo the pain of loneliness. Whenever you get the chance of feeling of loneliness, whenever you get the chance of that pain, whenever you get the chance of facing the pain of loneliness, don't miss it. It is a great opportunity. Great opportunity. You see, before any birth, the pain happens. Even before your birth, your mother has to undergo the pain. Just like that, undergo this pain of loneliness, you will see you give birth to yourself. Before any birth, pain has to happen. Before the tree happens, the seed has to suffer the pain. Seed has to break. Seed has to give way. It has to break and give way. Only then the tree can happen. Seed has to suffer the pain. Only then the tree can happen. Mother has to suffer the pain. Only then the child can happen. The same way, suffer the pain of loneliness. It is called tapascharya. Tapas. Tapas means don't think going and sitting in the forest. No. Suffer the pain of loneliness. Just witness the pain of loneliness. You will see you give birth to yourself. Understand, the aloneness is your nature. Whenever you are alone, try to find out. Try to question yourself, who am I? And whenever you feel the pain of loneliness, undergo it totally, with a total acceptance. You will see you give birth to yourself as individuality. So, when you understand these three things, you shift your whole emphasis from your personality to individuality, from your ego to the self, from your mind to the mindless bliss, from your suffering to the joy, from the pain to the bliss. So, let you understand that your being is nothing but alone. Your being of self or your being of bliss is nothing but alone. Enter from loneliness to aloneness. Even if it is a little bit painful, go through the tapas, go through the fire. You will see you became a 24 karat gold. You became a pure bliss. You became a pure ananda. You became a suddha ananda. So let you understand and experience and express the bliss of Nityananda from personality to individuality, from the state of the deep depression to the state of beautiful expression. So let you enter the space of your aloneness. Let you move from your loneliness to aloneness. As long as you resist, the loneliness kills you. When you accept, your life just runs. When you welcome it, you see your life becomes ecstasy. As long as you resist your loneliness, it just kills you. When you accept, your life runs. So, when you welcome the loneliness, you will see your life just becomes a ecstasy, bliss. You will have both the phase. Sometimes you need your own space. Sometimes your heart longs for relationship. So, whenever the chain happens, whenever the chakra runs, whenever you feel like being alone, whenever the loneliness happens, don't resist it. So, enter into your loneliness, you will see, you enter the space of aloneness. So, understand this. And by understanding this, you can change your loneliness into aloneness. Let you enter into the aloneness from your loneliness. From loneliness to aloneness. Let you enter into Nityananda. Thank you.
I've read about this. There's a book called Life's Truths. And in that book it says, ask yourself who you are.
Who's the author?
Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, she's a psychiatrist.
Oh.
I think she's still alive. She's probably in her 80s.
Oh, the Eastern wisdom has reached in many ways.
Yeah, so she says, ask yourself, because what you are is not what you really are. She says, and I've tried.
Now, what you think is not what you are really are.
So when I've tried, I mean, I was reading this on a flight when I was flying somewhere, and I was trying to read. It's very, it's a very heavy. When you read it, you can't just read it like a storybook. So I'm like sitting and reading this and trying to digest this. What does this really mean? So I had to keep going back. And when I ask myself the question, where does the answer come? Who am I? Where do I've asked this, and I'm like, okay, so who is it? What am I? Who am I? Which I've asked this even as a child.
You see, you are asking from where the answer can come.
Right.
It means you are not asked totally.
Okay.
When I say ask yourself, who am I don't mean question. I mean quest. There's a big difference between the question and the quest. If you just intellectually ask, just because the book says, it will be only a question. I don't say, make it as a question, make it as a quest. Whenever you feel alone, whenever you feel lonely, at those moments, let your whole mind vibrate with this one thought. Let your whole being turn towards inside with this one question. Then you will see the question becomes quest. If you ask us a question, anybody else can answer. When it becomes a quest, only then your being can answer. You will see always when it becomes a quest, your being gets the answer. Your being gets the answer. But it will not be an answer, it will be an experience. When it is a question, the answer will be enough. When it is a quest, it becomes an experience. Only the experience can answer. Only the experience can solve it. Your urge should become urgent. Your question should become a quest. You will see, of course, questioning once or twice, you will see naturally it becomes a quest. Allow the question to sink in your heart. Now it will be only in the head. Let it enter into your heart. You will see your being answers. You will see something flowers in you. Something happens in you, which I call meditation. The answer cannot be given or cannot be had intellectually. It can only be an experience. Just I am putting the seeds of meditation, you will see it grows automatically inside your system and gives you the fruit of bliss. Go through, allow the seed to enter into your being. That's enough. I think now everybody is in the aloneness. Yes.
That's the reason why Swami Yogananda's book Paramahamsa says man's eternal quest. That's the title of that book when he writes it.
Man's eternal quest is not to find God, to find himself. All our idea about God is nothing but the one dimension of ourself. Somebody asked me, Swamiji, are you God? I told him, no, I am not. I am something above than that. It may look like egoistic statement. No. The word God, what you understand, what you imagine, what meaning you give for the word God, a master is above than that. Not only me, even you are above than that. The word God is not only, you are not only beyond the meaning. See, whatever meaning you can give for the word God, you are above that. You are above that. Because all your meaning for the word God is nothing but your own imagination. But yourself is something real. Word God or all your explanation are nothing but the imagination. But yourself is something superior, far, far, far higher than the word God. So when somebody asks you, are you God? Always say, no, I am something more than God. So your quest for God, the man's eternal quest is not for God, it's for yourself. May I know what is the comment? All of us can laugh. Yes. No, just let me, yes, tell me. No, 1 minute. I wanted the...
Well, I was just joking with him that I said if I said in a meeting that I'm above God, they will send me to a mental asylum.
But don't bother, there will be some more people. You see, there was an asylum. Once the Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, visited that asylum. There was a man who was thinking himself as a Jawaharlal Nehru. He was in that asylum. When Nehru went, the man was introduced to Nehru. Sir, he thinks himself as a Nehru and he thinks himself as a Prime Minister. That's why he is having the treatment. Actually, when the man was introduced to Nehru, suddenly, but the Nehru was not introduced to him, that man. The man asked, Sir, I have been introduced to you. May I know who you are? The Nehru said, I am Nehru. I am the Prime Minister of this country. Then the man says, oh, no, okay, no problem. Be here. Within 6 months, they will make you all right. Because when I came here with the same thought, within 6 months, they made me all right. So, within the same way, within 6 months, they will make you also all right. Be here. So, when you go there, you will surely find some company. Yes, sir. Your question.
See, if you say we are above God, the people, millions of people are visiting Balaji or Tirupati. Am I right to say that they don't know if we are above God, they don't know what they're doing?
One thing, above the concept of God, you understand? By the word God, actually we don't understand anything. It is just a concept. It is just a concept. See, the visiting Balaji temple has got so many purposes. So many people have got the faith that when you go there, this happens, that happens. You see, visiting Balaji temple mostly is a business. No, mostly business trip. The people ask me, I'm on the way to my pilgrimage to Balaji Swamiji. I say, no, tell business trip. It is mostly business trip. Let me tell you a small story that will explain a lot. Three people, they wanted to start a business. When they were about to start a business, they had a anxiety or the deep insecurity whether the business will run perfectly all right or not, whether they will earn or lose. So one man suggested, he's the great devotee of Balaji. He said, you see, I have heard from so many people, if you make Balaji as your partner, he always gives you the success and prosperity. So let us make Balaji as our partner. So everybody accepted. So it was decided, whatever profit comes, it will be made as a 4 share. 3 will go to these 3 people, 1 will go to the Balaji Sundi. Business was over. After 1 year, the profit was 4 crore. So Balaji share is 1 crore. See, if it is a 5,000, 10,000 rupees, we don't mind putting in hundi. Poor God, let him have after all. When it is a crore, a small thought, a second thought started coming up in their mind. The first man, he said, you see, after all, Balaji has no issues. What is he going to do with 1 crore money? And after all, so many people are putting all their wealth in Balaji's temple. What is he going to do with such a lot of wealth? We are after all his sons. We are his children. Why not have a little bit of prasad or share from our father's heritage? One man suggested, we will make a small pit in the ground. All 1 crore rupee, we will convert it as a gold. We will throw up. Whatever falls inside the pit will go to the hundi. Whatever falls outside will come to us as a hereditary property from Balaji. Second man declared, no. We will make big pit. And whatever falls inside, that we will take. Whatever falls outside, that we will put it in the Balaji Sundi. Third man, very intelligent man, he suggested, we will throw everything up. Whatever Balaji wants, let him take. Whatever falls down, we will have it. Whatever falls down, we will have it. After all, we cannot give to the God what has fallen on the ground. And after all, he is up also, above us. Let him take whatever he wants. Almost all our thought, all our temple, all our prayer, all our pilgrimages, nothing but business. Even if you go sincerely, that there is God, there is Balaji in that place, when you go there, your mind reaches some state. Your mind experiences some dimension of your own being. That is what you call it as energy. You call it as a spirituality. There is a beautiful statement by Vivekananda in the Raja Yoga, in the Yoga Sutras. He says, all your prayer, all your pilgrimage, all your spiritual practice is nothing but the technique to awaken your own energy. Nothing but the technique to awaken your own potent energy, your own Kundalini Shakti. So all our pilgrimage is, all our outer rituals are nothing but the techniques to awaken your own energy. So whatever you call in the name of Balaji, whatever you understand as the powers of Balaji, as the personality of Balaji, surely your being is much more superior. Your Atman is much more superior than the concept. Because what your being is, that is Balaji himself. What your idea about Balaji is only idea about Balaji. Whatever you understand by the name of Balaji, it is your understanding about Balaji. Whatever your being is, it is Balaji himself. So, understand concept of Balaji and Balaji. Concept of Balaji and Balaji. Your being is Balaji. Your being is Bhagavan. Your being is God. But what you understand by the word God is your concept of God. Concept of God can never be superior than God himself. Just like that, the concept of Balaji can never be superior than your being itself. Am I able to explain?
Follow-up question, one more question.
Yes. Are you able to understand what the ideas which I expressed now?
In a way. But
Okay.
You said aloneness and loneliness. Let us talk about the loneliness. As you put in a way, metal has to melt to be molded. When you reach the loneliness, your concept, your object is to live blissfully and happily. that means if you reach the loneliness, that means the metal has melted to live a blissful life. In this country, probably loneliness probably major when you reach. If that is the case, the source of to avoid is meditation.
No,
Understand it properly.
no. When you try to avoid the relationships, again you are in one more bondage. You search for loneliness. Searching for loneliness again leads you to the one more bondage. Neither search nor avoid. Just welcome whenever it happens to you. Whenever your being wants it, whenever it happens to you, just welcome and enjoy it.
Or the loneliness, enjoy the loneliness.
I enjoy the loneliness, that's all. Never ask for it. When you ask for it, then again you have a demand. See, demand about loneliness makes you again having a relationship with loneliness. You understand? Loneliness becomes one more person. Just like a wife, loneliness becomes one more wife. You try to relate with the loneliness. One more relationship.
When you invite, you're feeling loneliness.
No, you see, whenever you feel loneliness,
How do you make that into a happiness? I mean,
you see,
if you-
whenever you are alone, you are lonely. Whenever you have nobody around you, just forget, just drop your mind, forget relating mentally with them. When you are alone, your mind will be relating with them. First thing, stop mentally relating with them. Second thing, don't be irritated or make somebody as a reason for your loneliness. First thing, drop mentally relating. Second thing, don't blame somebody, don't get irritated, don't find somebody as a reason for your loneliness. Third thing, relax. You will see that loneliness becomes aloneness. These two ideas is enough. Not getting irritated, and
But, you know, loneliness is a physical state when there is nobody around you. But you can be alone with everybody in it.
yes. You see, it is like with a pot of milk. First you have to drop a few drops of curd and keep it aside. After 2-3 hours, you will see the whole milk becomes a curd. But till the curd happens, if you continuously shake the milk, what will happen? You won't find the curd. Just like that, at the first you will find the loneliness. So allow the loneliness to happen to you in a very relaxed way. Then your whole being will become curd. The aloneness will happen. From loneliness, the aloneness will happen. Then you are with somebody or you are with everybody. You will never feel that you are mixing. You will feel totally relaxed. You see, whenever you catch hold of the relationship, whenever you catch hold of the incidents, whenever you catch hold of the outer pearls, you catch hold of the pearls, you identify yourself with the pearls instead of thread. Whenever you identify yourself with the thread, you relax, you let go the pearls. Identifying yourself with the thread, what I call enlightenment. Understanding your aloneness is what I call enlightenment.
But you're saying is that instead of physical being, you want to go something higher than physical, right?
In starting, you need to have a physical aloneness, physical loneliness. Because the curd has to happen. For some time, you need to keep the pot as it is. Once the curd happens, then you can shake, nothing wrong. Even if you shake, only the butter will come out. So till the curd happens, you need to keep the pot without movement. So till the aloneness happens, till you totally understand the joy of the aloneness, you need to undergo the physical loneliness.
As a follow-up question, can you explain how Namasmarana helps us in the quest?
You see, one big problem is, even Namasmarana creates a relationship. Even Namasmarana creates a relationship. Even Namasmarana makes you forget your aloneness. I tell you a truth from very higher level. For ordinary people, Namasmarana is perfectly alright. But the plane from which I am speaking, Namasmarana won't help. Namasmarana again makes you to relate with something, some of your concept. There are two things. You can relate with a real person, you can relate with a concept. When you relate with the real person, what happens? The same thing happens when you relate with the concept. Namasmarana makes you to relate with the concept. Better, instead of upasana, do vipassana. Upasana means namasmarana, relating. Vipassana means just penetrating. Watch your breath. Watch your mind getting depressed. Watch your mind feeling irritated. Watch your mind complaining. She is responsible, he is responsible, that fellow is responsible for my loneliness. Why not he can be with me? Why not she can be with me? Why not he can take care of me? Just watch all those irritation, sadness, the low mood or the depression. Just witness them. Instead of upasana, do vipassana. You will see the loneliness becomes aloneness. I think that when I replied for the Balaji question, you said I understood in a way. It means some portion is not understood.
No, but for me, to fully satisfy, I have to go a long way. I'm far from it, really.
No, can I, sorry, I have not heard. Can you tell me? I have not heard. Pardon.
For me, I had to reach that enlightenment. I'm far from it, so I have to
No, you said that, you said that I have understood in a way.
That's
It
what
means,
I meant.
what you have not understood. Can you intellectually express?
Swamiji, for a lot.
1 minute.
I'm just thinking myself, really. I'll come back to you.
Okay. You see, when you said that I have to reach the enlightenment, I am far from it. It is not. Actually, it is not. There is a beautiful sutra written by Ramana Maharshi. He says, to have relationship, to have money, to have name and fame, you need to work. To have aloneness, you need to do nothing. Just an understanding. For understanding, you don't have any distance. It is just your reality. When you understand, when you understood that loneliness or the feeling of personality is not your reality. The individuality, what you are, is your reality. The very understanding can drop the personality. The very understanding can simply happen. Somebody asked me, there's a beautiful Zen story. Somebody went and asked the Zen master, Swamiji, master, how long it takes to have the enlightenment? He said to winking. Sorry that I am not efficient in the language. You can understand my English is very butler English. Just 1 year ago I started speaking in English. I have studied in all in my mother tongue. Of course I studied very little, but all in my mother tongue. In my whole ashram I am the semi-literate person. I said, so I searched for words. The moment, the time, how much it takes for winking.
Not winking, that's a blink.
Blinking.
Kannadikkiradu winking. Kanne
Imekkirathu
is blink.
Blink. How much it takes for blinking? Not even 1,000 of second it takes to have enlightenment. It is just your conscious decision. You are already enlightened. Just express it over. Just declare it. Just declare, I am enlightened. I am going to live my enlightenment. Somebody, actually, there was a great enlightened master. His enlightenment day celebration was going on. That is the day when he became enlightened. They went and asked, Master, we all know that today is your enlightenment day. Actually, when you became enlightened, what happened? He says a revolutionary statement. What happened? Fool, what you are asking? Nothing has happened. I just decided that I will live my enlightenment today onwards. I just decided I will live my enlightenment today onwards. Over. I tell you from my experience, I tell you honestly, this is what actually enlightenment. Don't think something happens to you. Just some God descends on you, or somebody jumps on your head, or you grow 2 horns. No. Nothing. Enlightenment means just you decide. Let me express my enlightenment. Over. That's all. But again your mind says, no, I am little far from it. I need to have little more ripeness. I need to wait a little bit. No, not so immediately, not so quickly. I have some commitment, I have some business. Nothing. Everything will go on perfectly. Somebody asked me last time in Oklahoma, Swamiji, if I become enlightened, what will happen to my kids? What will happen to my family? I will also become like you. I said, never. Never. Don't think if you become enlightened, you will catch flight and you will go to LA to give discourses. No. For me, this is the way enlightenment is expressing. For you, you may become a better businessman. You may become a better businessman. You may become a better husband. You may become a better wife. You may become a better good person. So any way your enlightenment may express. So don't think after enlightenment I will be like this or I will be like that. Don't think if enlightenment happens, what will happen? Don't think. If enlightenment happens to you, I can be sure of one thing, your depression will disappear. That's all. You will have a tremendous joy, Nityananda with you. That's all. There is no other change. There is no other thing which you can expect by enlightenment. Never think enlightenment means changing your lifestyle. No. It will never change the quantity. It will change the quality. It will not change the incidents. It will change your being. It will not change the beads. It will change the thread. So don't be afraid of enlightenment. The fear of transformation is so deep. We always postpone the enlightenment. Understand. Just slap your face and declare you are enlightened. Over.
What is enlightenment mean? What does it really mean then? What is enlightenment?
Actually, a small story. Once the man went to the doctor and asked, Doctor, is blind from his birth. He went to the doctor and asked, Doctor, I am blind from my birth. Can you help me? Doctor said, surely, I will do an operation. You will have your eye and then you can walk without the stick. The stick which they use, the blind people use. Then the man asked, Sir, I understand you will do an operation for me. I understand I will get my eyes back. But how can I walk without stick? Only when you get the eyes, you will understand you can walk without stick. Till that time, intellectually you cannot understand, you can walk without stick. Only when you get the eyes, oh, stick is not necessary. Just the same way, declare with all your strength, I will leave my enlightenment. Whatever happens is what is your enlightenment. Now, when you ask, then what it means by enlightenment? Again you ask, if I become enlightened, what will happen to my life? How my life is going to change?
No, not really. See,
you ask, if I declare my enlightenment, how I should live?
No. What I'm asking there is, see, if you really look at it, there are two ways. There is a physical life and then there is a spiritual life. What you are trying to tell me, that the way I understand it, that once you get enlightened, you become more spiritual than you have any physical effect.
No.
No?
No.
Okay, then.
Once you become enlightened, you are neither spiritual nor material. As long as you are in the, you think you are not enlightened. As long as you think you are not enlightened, you are either material or spiritual. Both your material and spiritual can be called only as material. You understand? Both your ideas of you are becoming spiritual or you are becoming material is only material. All your becoming is nothing but material. Only your being is spiritual. See, as long as you think you are not enlightened, all your ideas about being spiritual or being material has no value. When you become spiritual, when you are actually decide you are enlightened, never be afraid, never think that you will become spiritual or material. You will be as you are. You will see a strange thing happens. You are enjoying everything, but you are not enjoying anything. You are enjoying everything, you are not enjoying anything. That your aloneness is so solid, it just continuously oozes out a bliss from you within. So whether your outer life changes or not, whether you are materialistic or not, you will see you are joyful. Never think, again your question resonates the fear that once I become enlightened, I will become spiritual. No, no.
It's not fear. I really want to understand. You really think it's really the state of mind, more or less, than anything else.
No, you are?
Enlightenment is really state of mind.
No.
No?
It is not even a state of mind. It is state beyond the mind, and the enlightenment can penetrate not only the mental level, it can penetrate all the levels. It is all the level. It is not only the level of mind or level of being or level of the body. You see, the very differentiation, the body and mind and being is what is unenlightenment. Once you understand the enlightenment, the three layers itself disappears. It's only it is.
So you're talking about super consciousness.
You see, don't bring the word super consciousness because the word will frighten you.
No, it's not.
Don't try to bring the words because you see that means something more. See, when you bring the word super conscious, when you bring the word God, when you bring the word nirvana, when you bring the word moksha, you mean something for it. I say enlightenment does not mean anything.
Then what is it? Because it doesn't mean, okay, my question is, it is making you to be a better man, and Catholic to be a better Catholic, and Hindu to be a better Hindu. That's what everybody says. So what we are telling is, you be in your state wherever you are, but you perform your duties and offer to whomever you want to, but be detached at the same time. That's what you are saying. Is that
You see,
what is enlightenment?
no, I am telling, that is what I am saying. I am not telling practice this, I am telling express it.
I know, how do you express it?
That is what, you see again, you ask for a technique, you understand? You ask for a technique to express it. So it means two things is there. One thing you decided that you cannot express, you want one thing.
That's not what I'm saying. Meditation will help me to...
No, let me explain. You have decided that you cannot express. Second thing, you want a method to express. Am I right?
No.
If you are not, if you decided, if you...
I did not decide that I cannot express it.
Then you simply express.
It's a method.
Simply, no, you simply
What I'm
express.
saying is, what do we have to do once you say you have an enlightenment, and how does that person will differ from before?
One thing.
And what else he has to do in addition to what he was doing?
So it means what? You are asking what I should do after enlightenment. Am I right?
What one will do, or not me, what a person will do.
No. You see, don't ask the objective questions. Ask only subjective questions.
Okay.
What other person may do when he becomes enlightened, what he will do will not be the same thing what you will do.
I have to do.
You see, when you ask what I have to do, you mean to say that give me the method how I will express my enlightenment. Am I right? Give me the method how I will express my enlightenment. Am I right?
I know, your answer is meditation.
No. One thing, please be very clear. Just consciously decide. I am giving you the very high level technique. Very high level technique. See, there are so many levels of techniques for enlightenment. I am giving you the very high level technique. I have never spoken on this high level technique. First time I am speaking because I feel the group is intelligent enough to receive me, enough to receive the strong blow. I am telling you, again you are asking the technique to express the enlightenment. Again you are asking for the method. Don't ask for the method. Just with all your strength, tell yourself, I am enlightened. I have no layers, that unenlightened portion or enlightened portion, or I have no state where I can reach, I am going to reach. Totally accept yourself, totally be relaxed and decide, I am unto myself. Now I am enough for myself. I have reached the state. I am in the state where I am supposed to be. Things are very clear. Now let me express my total relaxation. Express your utter relaxation. The way in which that expresses, first get utterly relaxed. understand, I have reached, be very clear, not only I say that mentally tell, collect your whole being and be very clear to your whole being, your mind, your emotion, your being, for everything tell yourself, I am enlightened, I am clear about it. If your half of your portion doubts, half of your mind will say, no, you are not enlightened. I know myself. I have all my doubts about you. Even the doubt, accept even the doubt. You decide, oh, in enlightenment even doubts exist. Don't think you are not enlightened. Think, I have enlightenment, but I have doubts about it. You understand? Shift the importance from the doubt to enlightenment. Now you have two things. One is enlightenment and doubt. Shift the importance from the doubt to the enlightenment. Now you say, because I have doubt, I am not enlightened. I tell you to change the word. I have enlightenment and I have doubt about that also. I have doubts about that also. Then you will see simply the doubt disappears. Simply you will see that doubt is like a dog which is barking at the elephant. If the elephant just turns his face and looks at the dog, you will see dog will be running backside. Have you seen a dog running just looking at front side? The dog will be looking at front side, but will be running, moving towards the back without even turning his face. Just like that, you will see your doubt backs out. I tell you to change the importance, to change the emphasis from the doubt to the faith, from the doubt to the enlightenment.
So when you said that we have to be lonely and that takes us to loneliness, I mean like there are certain episodes in the thing that says the gopis, they have always wanted and earned for the companionship of Lord Krishna, and that led to their enlightenment. So this is another way of seeing it, where you are actually seeking for companionship. You don't want to be lonely. You don't want to be lonely. You always want to be with the Lord. It may be any Lord. It may be Balaji. It can be Lord Krishna. But you are earning for being with Him, which led to your enlightenment. So, isn't not wanting loneliness also lead to enlightenment?
Okay. You have finished your question? 2-3 things you need to understand. You see, the attachment towards the form of the Krishna made the gopis to forget all the other attachment. Then Krishna took them above from his form also. From his form also. Have you heard of Ras Leela? Never think in Ras Leela Krishna was present. If you read the Bhagavata, then you will understand in Ras Leela all the gopis had the experience of Sahasrar, aloneness. In Ras Leela there were no Krishna and gopis. There was only Krishna, or there was only gopis. They reached the aloneness. The reaching of the aloneness only has made them enlightened. The Raman Maharshi used to say an example, tell an example. To burn the dead bodies, in India they will use a big bamboo. The bamboo will be used to burn the dead bodies. Once the dead body is totally burned, the bamboo also will be put in that fire itself and burnt. Just like that, to burn the attachment for all the other forms, the Krishna's form is used. Then that form is also thrown into the formlessness. That's all. If you are a healer, then you know, in our healing initiation, I tell them first to remember me. Then immediately when you see the energy flow happening, you should forget my form. You should not hold on to my form. And sometimes it is so beautiful, so loving, the master's form, we never let go. It is Daivata. Daivata means, because the continuous remembrance of the divine, the divinity, continuous flowing of the divine grace, even the form becomes beautiful. Not beautiful, graceful. Beauty is different, grace is different. Beauty comes by makeup, grace comes by meditation. Beauty comes by makeup, grace comes by meditation. 1 minute, let me finish the answer. So, master's form, even the form becomes so graceful, you are completely attached to it. You are attached to Krishna's form. You are attached to Rama's farm. You are attached to Lord's farms. You are attached to Master's farms. Don't be. I always tell them, beware of Nityananda. At one stage, beware of Nityananda. Only then you can be aware of Nitya Ananda. Beware of Nityananda. Only then you can be aware of Nitya Ananda. This is the thing.
Swamiji, in other words, what you are saying is only when you lose your mind, you can reach the state of aloneness.
Yes.
If a madman
Yes.
or a complete drunk can be in that state. But those of us who have to live day-to-day life, we cannot keep our mind totally blank.
Yes. Here is a beautiful question. You see, I tell you, generally I don't speak. Let me tell you a small incident. Have you heard of the Papaji, a great enlightened master? He's called Punjaji also. Have you any of you heard about him? He says, to live a day-to-day life, you don't need mind. When you don't have mind, you live a day-to-day life perfectly. He says a beautiful two things, which is almost like a gambling with your life. I used to sit in the center of the fire and keep the alive fire around me and used to meditate so that I won't fall asleep. All this type of vigorous tapas, with all these things, with all these techniques, with all this practice, nothing could be achieved. It was the 24th evening. Tomorrow morning is a Christmas. Today, the 24th evening, some terrible depression descended on me. I have decided, I think there is nothing called enlightenment. It is simply foolishness. I have wasted my life and the terrible suffering came up. See, believing these great masters, Ramakrishna, Raman Maharshi, they were the inspiration for me to run away from the house. Believing these great people, I have left my life, and especially the cream of the life is youth. I have gambled my youth. I have sacrificed my youth. Otherwise I could have had at least a joyful life, at least a happy life in my house, in my family, with my family. I left everything. And the one more thing, when I left, I don't even want to have any property, so I have signed the papers. I will not have any connection, I don't want any property, all this, the legal signatures, everything I have done. So I was thinking, what foolish thing I have done. Believing these great masters, I have left everything, and finally, if I'm not enlightened, if there is no such thing as enlightenment, then what for I did all these things? I felt as if I have been cheated. And not only that, I felt the idea of enlightenment itself is a conspiracy against humanity. It is just carried by master after master. It is just a conspiracy against humanity, just to promote their life, their idea. They told something. This was the thought which I had. This was the doubt which I had. I was having a small Ramakrishna's photograph. When the suffering and the pain came, I just took that photo which I was worshipping for years and threw it out. When I threw it, I was staying in the forest. It went and hit on a rock and got broken. And the depression was such, the feeling of being cheated is such, I threw away the mantra which I was using with my Japamala. You will not, I don't know how you will believe, I forgot the mantra when I threw it out. Mentally, I totally threw it out. I totally threw everything out. I decided, no more meditation, no more enlightenment, enough. Let me relax. What happens, let it happen. The 7th day, I became enlightened. The 7th day, the experience descended. I say very jovially, the 7th day, the big group which is conspiring against the humanity has included me in their group. As you think, I also thought, in normal life, in day-to-day life, without mind we cannot live. I had this doubt. Not only doubt, very seriously. You see, for you, attending this discourse is not like a life and death question. You can go and carry on your life. But for me, the question was life and death question. Then you understand how much deep I would have pondered on that question. You understand what I mean? How much deep I would have thought about that question. I was taking my life on that question. Whether can we live without mind or not? With that question, I have staked my life. It is ultimate gambling I played. But I tell you, from my experience, honest experience, by this answer, I am not making you, I am not inspiring you, I am not converting to you some religion. It is my experience, honest experience. Because I suffered the suffering which you are undergoing in a much more deeper way. In a much more deeper way. I don't know about your quest or the suffering. I can say, surely, much more deeper way, I suffered this question. I underwent this quest. I had this depression. So, from that authority, I tell you, I beg you, if you just take one jump, just trust this one word, that you can live without mind, and if you jump, you will see Nityananda. Thank you.
I just want to share this because it came to my mind when you said about Swami Vivekananda. For some of those who live here, they probably know. For those who don't know this place, where you are sitting is where Swami Vivekananda in 1900 has wandered in these hills. Right around about half a block from here is the Vivekananda house, which is made around the 200 in 200 years of Los Angeles. They made it into a historical mansion, and there on the top is a meditation room.
Not only meditation room, one of his beautiful discourses is delivered here.
In the Green Hotel, right here, it used to be, still the Green Hotel still exists, and in that place alone, I mean, you're sitting here, and this is where Swami Vivekananda was there, and I was just wanted to share that with.
I tell you,
Not seen that place.
see, I tell you one more thing. Because I have underwent this question, I tell you, you can really live without mind. It's my experience. You can see here a man sitting with flesh and bones. Flesh and bones. See directly. If possible, just be around me for a few days, then you will understand that it is possible. You can be alive without mind. Or talk to the people who live around me, then you will understand the glimpse. There is a possibility. You see, Master is a proof. Master is a proof for all the teachings of the great masters. Master, when enlightenment happens to somebody, the whole thing, the whole ideology, the whole spirituality comes back to life. The Lord, to prove his philosophy, to prove his ideas, to prove his teachings, again and again takes the form of the masters and teaches. He proves again and again what he taught is truth by taking the form of the master. So I tell you, it is the honest truth, not for anything. By making you to believe this word, I have nothing to gain. You understand? I have no vested interest by making you believe this word, except I know the pain of the suffering which you are undergoing. The same way I walked. You see, you walked through some road, 10 miles. If somebody calls you by cell phone and asks, how is the traffic? How is the road? How is the way? Will you not have a simple courtesy to guide him? Will you not have a simple compassion to tell him how the way was? How the road was? With the same courtesy, with the same compassion, I tell you, simply you can live without mind. Thank you.
I have one last, which
Okay,
you
ma.
explained.
Last question, because it is time 9.
Last question. You said one story about in Madras, the taxi driver and
Yes.
so it's like whoever is sitting, passenger, they were
praying.
oh God, they're praying. So that means every day when we pray, God will reach heaven. That's the way you explain
No. Actually, that's just a joke. Ma.
I know, but
That does not have any fact.
no, okay. So
But the prayer helps you to awaken your energy. Prayer makes you to meditate.
because according to the
You see,
story,
meditation is the place where you are going to reach. Prayer is the path through which you can reach. So prayer is perfectly all right as long as it leads to a meditation. Thank you.